In the bustling city of Ibadan, there lived a girl named Amaka. She was the only daughter of Mom and Kechi, a hardworking food vendor who sold delicious jollof rice and egusi soup at Bodija Market. People came from all over to eat Mom and Kechi's food because it was the tastiest in the area. But Amaka was different. Unlike her mother, she hated cooking. She hated the smell of food, the heat from the fire, and the time it took to prepare a meal. While other girls in the neighborhood learned how to cook from their mothers, Amaka spent her time sleeping, watching television, or chatting on her phone. Her mother would call her into the kitchen, saying, "Amaka, come and pound yam." But Amaka would groan, "Ah, Mama, my hands are paining me." If her mother asked her to wash vegetables, she would say, "Mama, the scent of ugu leaves makes my head spin." She always had one excuse or another, and soon, she became known as the girl who couldn't cook. Amaka was a very beautiful girl. Her skin was smooth like shea butter, and her eyes sparkled like the morning sun. Many young men admired her, but when they heard she couldn't cook, they quickly changed their minds. One day, a wealthy young man named Obinna came to visit Amaka's family. He was looking for a wife, and he had heard about Amaka's beauty. Obinna was tall, strong, and had a successful business. When he entered the house, he greeted Mama and Kechi respectfully and said, "I have come to ask for your daughter's hand in marriage." Mama and Kechi smiled and nodded. "You are welcome, my son. But before we talk about marriage, let us eat." She turned to Amaka and said, "Amaka, go to the kitchen and prepare a meal for our guest." Amaka's heart skipped a beat. She had never cooked a full meal before. She could barely boil water, let alone cook something for a guest. But she didn't want to embarrass herself, so she went to the kitchen. She looked around, confused. Where should she start? She had watched her mother cook many times, but never paid attention. She decided to make jollof rice, but instead of washing the rice properly, she poured it straight into the pot. She added too much water, and when she tried to stir it, it became a soggy mess. She then fried plantains, but she left them in the oil for too long, and they burnt to charcoal. She tried to make chicken stew, but she forgot to add salt. When she tasted it, she almost spat it out. Amaka panicked. How could she serve this food? But it was too late. Obinna was waiting. When Amaka brought the food to the table, she forced a smile. Obinna took a spoonful of the jollof rice and frowned. He tried the stew and coughed. When he bit into the burnt plantain, he shook his head. Mama and Kechi watched in silence. She already knew what had happened. Obinna cleared his throat and said, "Amaka, did you cook this food yourself?" Amaka lowered her head in shame. Obinna sighed and stood up. "A beautiful woman is good, but a hardworking woman is better. How can I marry someone who doesn't know how to cook? Cooking is not just about food. It is about care and responsibility." With that, he left. Mama and Kechi looked at her daughter and said, "You see what I have been telling you? Beauty will not cook food in your husband's house. Now, you have brought shame to yourself." Amaka felt terrible. She never thought that not knowing how to cook could cost her something important. But she was still too stubborn to change. Little did she know, a bigger lesson was waiting for her. After the disastrous dinner with Obinna, Amaka became the laughingstock of the neighborhood. Everywhere she went, people whispered, "That's the girl who couldn't cook." Even the market women teased her. "Fine girl, do you want to buy already cooked food? We know you cannot cook." Amaka hated the attention, but instead of learning her lesson, she became even more stubborn. One evening, Mama and Kechi sat her down and said, "My daughter, I won't be here forever. You need to learn how to take care of yourself." Amaka frowned. "Mama, this is not the olden days. These days, men marry women for love, not for cooking." Mama and Kechi sighed. "Love is sweet, but hunger is stronger. A woman who cannot cook will struggle, my dear." But Amaka refused to listen. A few months later, another suitor came. His name was Tunde, and he was a kind and patient man. Unlike Obinna, he was willing to give Amaka another chance. When he visited, he said, "I believe every person can learn, as long as they are willing. Amaka, I would like to marry you, but only if you can cook a simple meal for me." Amaka was nervous, but she didn't want to fail again. So, she secretly went to her friend, Aisha, who was a great cook. "Aisha, please help me cook for my visitor," she begged. Aisha felt sorry for her friend and agreed. She prepared a delicious pot of egusi soup with pounded yam while Amaka watched. When Tunde arrived, Amaka pretended she had cooked the food herself. He ate and smiled. "This is very good," he said. "I see you have improved." Amaka beamed with pride. She had tricked him, but she didn't know that a bigger test was coming. A few weeks later, Tunde and Amaka got married in a beautiful ceremony. Amaka was excited to start her new life, but she had forgotten something very important. She still didn't know how to cook. At first, she managed to hide it. She ordered food from restaurants and pretended she cooked it. But soon, the truth came out. One day, Tunde invited his parents over for dinner. He said, "My dear, please make them your special egusi soup, the one you cooked when we were dating." Amaka froze. She poured palm oil into the pot, but forgot to let it heat before adding onions. She used too much water for the soup, making it look like watery porridge. Finally, when she served the food, everyone stared at it in shock. Tunde sighed deeply. "You tricked me. But now we are married, and I cannot eat outside food every day. You must learn how to cook." After weeks of practice and frustration, Amaka improved. She finally cooked a perfect meal. One day, Tunde's family visited again. When they tasted her food, they smiled. "This is wonderful," Tunde's mother said. Amaka had done it. She had once been the lazy girl who couldn't cook, but now she was a confident wife who could take care of her home. From that day, Amaka even started teaching other young girls how to cook. And whenever people asked her how she learned, she would laugh and say, "I was once the girl who couldn't cook. But if I can learn, anyone can." Please subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more amazing stories.